If a man ever says, "I don't know what I lost," it's because you stopped explaining and started responding with silence, self-control, and distance. Emotional control is not silence, and it is not coldness. It is the ability to feel everything without letting those feelings take control of your behavior. Most women believe that expressing emotion quickly proves honesty, connection, and care. In reality, emotional urgency often communicates insecurity, not depth. When a woman reacts immediately, texting back too fast, explaining herself too much, defending her feelings before they are questioned, she teaches a man that her emotions are easily accessible and easily influenced. Emotional control changes that dynamic completely. A woman with emotional control does not rush to feel silence. She understands that silence is information. When a man pulls back slightly, she does not chase to restore comfort. She allows the space to exist long enough for the truth to reveal itself. This does not mean she suppresses her emotions. It means she processes them privately before responding publicly. Men feel this difference instinctively. They sense when a woman is responding from self-regulation instead of emotional overflow. Emotional urgency seeks relief. Emotional control seeks clarity. When a woman is emotionally urgent, she wants the discomfort to stop immediately. She wants reassurance, validation, confirmation. So she asks questions she already knows the answers to. She pushes conversations before the man has even decided what he feels. This creates pressure, and pressure creates resistance. Men may not consciously identify it, but they feel boxed in, rushed, and emotionally managed. Over time, they associate that woman with emotional demand rather than emotional safety. Emotional control does the opposite. It creates space for a man to move toward her on his own. When she feels uncertainty, she doesn't interrogate it. She watches behavior. She notices patterns. She lets actions speak louder than promises. This calm observation unsettles men who are used to women reacting quickly. It forces them to become more aware of their own behavior. They begin to self-correct, not because they were asked to, but because the mirror is quietly in front of them. A woman with emotional control doesn't argue her worth. If something feels dismissive, inconsistent, or disrespectful, she doesn't demand an explanation in the heat of the moment. She takes note. She pulls back slightly. She becomes less available emotionally, not in a dramatic way, not as punishment, but as a natural consequence of misalignment. This shift is subtle, but it is powerful. Men feel the difference immediately, even if they can't explain it. Most men are not moved by emotional intensity. They are moved by emotional intensity. They are moved by emotional stability. Stability communicates confidence. Confidence signals value. When a woman remains composed under emotional pressure, she signals that her sense of self is not dependent on the outcome of the interaction. That independence is magnetic. It tells a man that she is choosing to be there, not needing to be there. And choice always carries more weight than need. Emotional control also changes how conflict is perceived. Instead of escalating tension, she lowers it. Instead of reacting defensively, she listens. Instead of proving her point, she allows the moment to breathe. This doesn't mean she accepts poor treatment. It means she refuses to engage in chaos. Men remember this because it is rare. Most people escalate when triggered. Very few remain grounded. That grounded presence becomes unforgettable. When a woman responds calmly instead of emotionally, she forces a man to confront himself. There is no drama to hide behind, no emotional explosion to distract from his behavior. Just clarity, and clarity is uncomfortable for someone who is unsure of their intentions. Her calmness becomes a form of quiet authority, not dominance, not control, authority over herself. Emotional control also protects her dignity. She doesn't send messages she later regrets. She doesn't over-explain her boundaries. She doesn't beg for understanding. She states what she needs once, calmly, and then watches what happens next. If behavior aligns, she stays. If it doesn't, she adjusts her access. This consistency builds trust, not just for him, but for herself. Men never forget the woman who didn't fall apart when things were uncertain. They remember the woman who didn't chase clarity, but allowed clarity to reveal itself. They remember the woman who didn't demand emotional labor, but inspired emotional reflection. Emotional control leaves an imprint because it shifts the emotional responsibility back where it belongs. A woman who responds with emotional control teaches a man how to treat her without ever giving a lecture. Her behavior sets the standard. Her calm sets the tone. Her restraint communicates strength. Over time, men associate her presence with peace instead of pressure. And peace is what the nervous system remembers long after words fade. Emotional control is not about strategy. It is about self-respect. It is the understanding that emotions are powerful, but they are not meant to be unleashed without direction. When a woman masters this, she becomes emotionally sovereign. She is no longer pulled by fear of loss or need for validation. She moves from choice, not impulse. This is why men never forget her. Not because she tried to be memorable, but because her emotional discipline created an experience they rarely encounter. An experience where they felt free, respected, and quietly challenged all at once. Removing access is not manipulation. It is a response to information. Most women believe that if they explain their feelings clearly enough, a man will understand and adjust. What actually happens is the opposite. The more access a woman gives while feeling uncertain, the more she teaches a man that access is unconditional. Reassurance seeking keeps the connection alive, but it also removes urgency, accountability, and consequence. When a woman asks for reassurance, she is trying to stabilize her emotions through someone else. She asks where she stands. She asks what he feels. She asks what he feels. She asks what this is. These questions are understandable, but they place her emotional security in his hands. A man feels this immediately. Even if he offers reassurance, he subconsciously registers that her emotional state depends on his words. Over time, this lowers perceived value, not because she is wrong for wanting clarity, but because clarity requested too early replaces clarity earned through behavior. Removing access shifts the entire dynamic. Instead of asking for reassurance, she watches consistency. Instead of requesting time, attention, or effort, she notices whether those things are freely given. When they are not, she doesn't complain. She reduces her availability. She stops initiating. She becomes less emotionally open. This is not done to provoke a reaction. It is done to protect her energy. Men respond more to absence than to explanation. An explanation gives them comfort. Absence creates reflection. When a woman removes access, a man is forced to feel the change without being guided through it. He notices the slower replies. He notices the slower replies. He notices the emotional distance. He notices that something is different, and because no speech accompanied the shift, he has to look inward to understand why. Asking for reassurance keeps the focus on the woman's feelings. Removing access places the focus on the man's behavior. This is where accountability begins. When access remains the same regardless of effort, there is no incentive to change. When access adjusts naturally in response to inconsistency, effort either increases or the truth becomes clear. A woman who removes access is not punishing. She is responding. She understands that access is a privilege, not a guarantee. Emotional access, time, attention, and availability are valuable. When these are given freely to someone who is unsure, distracted, or inconsistent, their value decreases. When they are given selectively, they are respected. Men often don't realize how much a woman contributes emotionally until that contribution is gone. While reassurance is being asked, the emotional labor continues. She carries the conversations. She keeps the connection alive. She fills the gaps. When she stops doing that, the silence reveals who was really sustaining the bond. Removing access also protects a woman from overinvesting in potential rather than reality. Instead of staying engaged while hoping he will show up, she steps back and lets reality present itself. If he steps forward, it is because he chose to, not because he was emotionally managed. If he doesn't, she has her answer without ever asking a painful question. This behavior creates emotional self-respect. She is no longer negotiating her worth. She is observing alignment. She does not need to announce her boundaries repeatedly. Her boundaries are reflected in her behavior. When something doesn't feel right, her energy shifts. This consistency builds internal trust. She knows she will not abandon herself for temporary reassurance. Men never forget the woman who didn't plead for clarity. They remember the one who quietly changed her behavior. because that shift made them feel the weight of their choices. There was no argument to win, no emotion to dismiss, just a noticeable absence that forced awareness. Removing access also reveals intention. A man who is emotionally invested will move toward what feels distant. A man who is unsure will let distance grow. Either way, the woman gains clarity without sacrificing dignity. She does not have to convince. She does not have to chase. She simply responds to what is in front of her. This is not about playing hard to get. It is about being hard to kit. It is about being hard to keep. When access is no longer automatic, it becomes meaningful. Men value what requires presence, effort, and consistency. When a woman removes access instead of asking for reassurance, she communicates that she values herself enough to not remain emotionally exposed to uncertainty. This is why the memory lingers, not because she disappeared dramatically, but because she changed the rules without explanation. And that quiet shift stays with a man far longer than any conversation ever could.